The journey to Salzburg was horrific. Leskblad station was small, but there was no clear indication of what platform to go to, and there were no staff to ask. I ended up chatting to lots of other confused backpackers, and none of us had a clue. The train was delayed by 40 minutes as well, so I sat on a random platform and had some really interesting conversations with other travellers. The train eventually turned up, but it decided to cancel itself partway through the journey, so we all got kicked off the train. Once again, I was sat on a platform, this time for 2 hours. The next train was horrendously busy, but it's funny how people always end up talking because of these scenarios. Normally when things run smoothly, we mind our own business, but somehow we end up bonding with others through mutual frustration. When I arrived in Salzburg, the frustration continued for me. I struggled to get a taxi and several cancelled on me. I did not have the energy to work out the public transport system, so I was patient and eventually got a taxi to my very basic bed and breakfast. My evening consisted of going to the spa and not doing much else. I'd had enough. I started my day by walking to the Salzburg fortress that hangs over the city, as recommended by my taxi driver from the day before. I particularly enjoyed the views on the way to the fortress. The fortress had a viewing platform where I was able to take in even more spectacular scenes. I walked around the fortress, visited the museums within it, and attended a short tour. I didn't spend that long at the fortress, as overall I was a bit unenthralled. I got the funicular back down and walked around the streets of Salzburg trying to figure out what to do next. I made the decision to go to Mozart's residence, which had been turned into a museum. This was another activity that was somewhat of a disappointment. I didn't really feel like I learnt very much or gained anything from the experience, so I left feeling disheartened that Salzburg so far hadn't been that great. I still had a good chunk of time left in the day, so I went to the Christmas Museum. Based on reviews, my expectations were very low, so I was pleasantly surprised when I actually thoroughly enjoyed this small museum. It was a private collection and traced the Christmas traditions in Austria. It was really weird to see devil-like figurines that were supposed to be St. Nicholas, and so much of the museum felt very eccentric. The exhibits were wonderful, but English explanations were lacking. Nevertheless, I was just content looking at all the decorations. finished the day by getting an Italian takeaway and sitting in a park where I watched the many cyclists, dog walkers and joggers. I also had hope that tomorrow would be a more successful day. On my final day in Salzburg, I attended 2 tours, the first of which took me to a salt mine, where I was able to put on overalls, slide down a slide, and finally cool down underground. I enjoyed getting to taste the salt water, but overall it's just a giant hole in the ground and nothing that outstanding. Afterwards, we visited the town of Berchtesgaden, which is a German town on the Austrian border. I enjoyed walking around and admiring the shops and buildings, and I delighted in getting a large cappuccino and some apple strudel. I returned to Salzburg and went on my second tour, which was a lakes and mountains tour where I was able to gaze at some beautiful sights and even take a boat on Wolfgangsee Lake. I learnt that it rains more in Salzburg than it does in Ireland, and I also learnt that before the cog train up Schafberg mountain was built, there were men who were actually employed to actually carry people up the mountain to the hotel. We arrived in the town St. Wolfgang, where we got caught in a brief storm. I was still able to get an ice cream and wander the lovely streets, and I took shelter inside the parish church, where I was able to watch some musicians practice. I learnt that a very famous German film called The White Horse Inn was filmed in the town as well. After the tour was over, I wandered around Mirabel Garden, admiring the flowers and statues and taking in the elegant and dreamy landscape. And that's my postcard from Salzburg. I was pleased that my time in Salzburg didn't fall completely flat on its face. I felt pressure to try my best and enjoy every moment, but I realised that not everything is going to be a sensational and unforgettable experience, and so far I had already learned from my trip that often the smaller and unexpected experiences are what really stand out.